members Fielden. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Montcalm.
Mr. Speaker, for the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, allow me to pass on one of their simple requests. It's simple but essential. Persons with disabilities wish to be treated as full, equal citizens. They are an integral part of our society, with all the rights accorded to other citizens. This isn't an overly complicated request, but you might be surprised to see to what extent persons with disabilities must fight day in and day out for their rights to be recognized, such as education, the right to work, and to receive basic services that John and Jane Q. Public have access to easily every day. We need to influence all Canadians to recognize the potential of persons with disabilities. We need to stimulate what these people can bring to society, and we need to ensure that they have the same access to dignity as all Canadians. The ultimate goal being to change the way we look at persons with disabilities. Thank you.
The honourable member for South Shore, St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, recruiting and retaining healthcare practitioners can be difficult in rural Canada. This is often further challenged by the lack of modern office space designed for healthcare professionals. In my riding of South Shore, St. Margaret's, a dedicated group of local volunteers is working to change that. They are fundraising to build a collaborative healthcare facility to service the municipality of Chester, the Hubbards area, Tancook Islands, and my hometown of New Ross. Our health center will attract and provide space for primary care practitioners, wellness professionals, and visiting specialists. The building will include a main reception area, information center, 6 medical offices, and additional clinic space. This is an ambitious project, and I would like to congratulate all who have worked on or contributed towards it. This group of dedicated volunteers has already raised $3.1 million with a goal of raising $4.5 million. Please visit www.ourhealthcenter.ca to follow this terrific project and to see how you too can donate.
The honourable member for York South Weston.
Mr. Speaker, today is International Day for Persons with Disabilities, and New Democrats are celebrating the contributions Canadians with disabilities have made to this country. We are deeply concerned, though, about how little progress Canada has made in meeting its obligations to improve access, employability, and services to persons with disabilities under the UN Charter of Rights of Persons with Disabilities. An estimated 4.4 million Canadians are living with disabilities, and many suffer from income insecurity, substandard housing, limited employment opportunities, and unequal access to the health services they depend on. The UN Charter sets goals to improve these conditions, but this government has no plan to get there. That's why we are asking today that the Government of Canada invite the UN Special Rapporteur on Persons with Disabilities to make an official visit to Canada to assist us in achieving the commitments that Canada signed on to. The entire NDP caucus is committed to building a fairer and more prosperous Canada where each citizen has the opportunity to achieve his or her full potential, and this must include our disability community.
The honourable member for Wild Rose.
Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to thank 12-year-old Zoe Wynn of Airdrie, Alberta for reminding us of the importance of generosity. Like thousands of Canadians, Zoe and her family support Operation Christmas Child. 3 years ago, Zoe packed 30 shoeboxes. Last year, she filled 70. And this year, with the outstanding support of local businesses, she packed 100 shoeboxes. And that is just the beginning of Zoe's generosity. She also volunteers with Stephen's Backpack Society, one of Airdrie's best-known charitable organizations. The society was also born of a child's generosity. In 2006, then 6-year-old Stephen McPhee inspired a movement when he insisted on filling backpacks for homeless children in Calgary and across our region. I'm inspired by the generosity of these children, Mr. Speaker, and this Christmas season, let us all remember that a single gift can change a life. And let us also remember that the act of giving changes 2 lives.
Two great Canadians.
The honourable member for Trinity Spadina.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, the Minister for State for Social Development referenced the shelter in my riding built by her department with federal funds. She blamed me for cost overruns approved by her department in advance. What the Minister didn't tell the House was that the additional funds were needed to make the shelter accessible. In fact, what was required was an elevator. That's the reason it cost more. These changes were required not only to meet new provincial guidelines, but as I said, to make the shelter accessible for people with disabilities. That information wasn't in the Sun News story, so I guess it wasn't in her briefing note. But on this, the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, does the minister really think that making housing accessible is an unacceptable cost overrun? Is it something that she defines as a waste of taxpayers' money? On this day of all days, it's time for the minister to support making housing accessible, to stop defining reasonable accommodation and meeting provincial accessibility guidelines as a financial burden or something to be mocked. Building good housing, accessible housing, affordable housing is her job. She should get to work.
The honourable member for North Vancouver.
Mr. Speaker, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. In North Vancouver, we are starting our celebrations with lights, decorated trees, activities for kids, hot chocolate, and gingerbread for all. This Saturday at Shipbuilders Square, the North Vancouver Christmas Festival has all this and more. There you can take part in lots of fun, free activities for the whole family, like making Christmas ornaments, lanterns, and gingerbread cookies. And of course, the main star of the show, Santa Claus, will be on hand for photos with the kids. Or you can head over to Lynn Valley Village Plaza for the 4th annual Christmas Tree Walk, where you can enjoy the many Christmas trees on display. Also this year, North Vancouver's own Capilano Suspension Bridge Park hopes to once again claim the title for the world's tallest living Christmas tree, a 250-year-old Douglas fir that stands 152 feet high. This stunning sight will be draped in hundreds of thousands of twinkling lights, which have also been strung along the suspension bridge itself. This holiday season, North Vancouver is the place to be. Ho, ho, ho.
Honourable member for Montmorency Charlevoix, Haute-Côte-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the holiday season is fast approaching, and I would like, in this House, to highlight the incredible effort and exceptional selflessness of hundreds of Guignoleux and Guignoleuses who will soon be pounding the pavement across my riding of Montmorency Charlevoix, Haute-Côte-Nord, with the goal of collecting donations and non-perishable food items for those in need. This long-standing tradition in Quebec warrants encouragement and congratulations. I would like, on this occasion, to recognize the devotion and the generosity of these volunteers who are directly involved, who go out when it's time to help those who are the least fortunate among us. I would like to thank each of these men and women who, with a simple sharing gesture, are making a major contribution to our community.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is the first anniversary of an organization that has done incredible work for the people of Brampton, the Journey Neighbourhood Centre in Ardglen. It was created over a year ago to deliver social services for local residents. The centre's goal was to help unite and empower residents of the community. Its founding was spearheaded by a great Bramptonian, Pastor Jamie Holtham. Pastor Jamie was aided by many people, including Ted Brown of Regeneration, Brampton Safe City, the United Way, Habitat for Humanity, and also many local volunteers. Its efforts are currently being spearheaded by Barbara Ann Smith. The centre took on a new role after a fire devastated the Ardglen neighbourhood. Through fundraising and support services, it has played a key role in helping those affected get back on their feet. Colleagues, please join me in thanking the Journey Neighbourhood Centre for a fantastic first year and wishing them a very happy anniversary.
The honourable member for Peace River.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to stand in this House today to pay tribute to the generous folks in the Peace Country who are giving back this Christmas season. Our communities are filled with hardworking people who are serious about supporting those who are in need. Over the past week, we have witnessed thousands of local residents engage in the effort that supports others. Churches, businesses, schools, community groups, and others have come together to stuff shoeboxes that will be sent to poverty-stricken kids in faraway places. They have donated food to local food banks. They have collected toys for Stuff the Bus and Stuff the House campaigns to give children who are less fortunate toys this Christmas. And money, time, and resources have been given in support of others in need. I am proud of our community. This Christmas, there are many throughout the Peace Country and throughout the world that will share in the season because of the generosity of local residents. On behalf of this House, our government, and the thousands who will benefit from their efforts. We want to thank each and every one of these people who have given back to make this Christmas season bright for the others.
The Honourable Member for Chambly-Baudoin. Mr. Speaker, the Habs, Quebec, and Canada have lost one of the greats. Last night, Le Gros Bill passed away. Jean Béliveau was a champion and our captain, both on the ice and in the community. He not only won 10 Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens, he also contributed so much to charitable causes over the years. Literally and figuratively head and shoulders above us all, he was awarded the National Order of Quebec and the Order of Canada. And yet, his humility was even greater than his hockey career. He twice turned down an appointment to the Senate and even the post of Governor General, simply because he wanted to stay close to his family and his community.
A gentleman on and off the ice, Jean Béliveau was truly the perfect example of an athlete whose impact goes beyond his sport and even beyond borders.
The torch carried by today's Montreal Canadiens will be a little heavier and a little taller today with the memory of this great man. Thank you, Mr. Béliveau.
Pickering, Scarborough East.
Mr. Speaker, under our new family tax cut and benefits, all families with children in Canada will be better off. 100% of families with children will benefit by an average of over $1,100 per year. A single mother earning $30,000 with 2 kids will benefit by $1,500. Our family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will put money back in the pockets of Canadian families. We are doing so because we believe that Canadian families know best how to spend their money. The Liberals and the NDP would take that money away from Canadian families and give it to big government bureaucracy. We won't let them get away with it.
Here, here. The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, as we approach the 25th anniversary of the Montreal Massacre, I want to pay tribute to work in my riding done by PAVE, the Parkdale Anti-Violence Education Working Group. This coalition of service providers takes action on International Women's Day, Take Back the Night, and December 6th, the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. I'm proud to join PAVE each year to present the Rose McGrarty Memorial Scholarship to a woman who has survived violence and enhanced the lives of other women and children in Parkdale. PAVE brings together women from the community to help them develop into leaders and find their voice to fight sexual violence and the accompanying silence and isolation. Let's all thank groups like PAVE that work to end violence against women so that the Montreal Massacre is never repeated.
The Honourable Member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada-Korea Free Trade Agreement, Canada's first with an Asian market, will create thousands of new jobs in Canada and provide Canadian business and workers with a gateway to Asia. Having lived in Asia and worked there for a decade, Mr. Speaker, I can attest personally to the importance of that gateway. Last week, the Minister of International Trade informed this House that the Canada-Korea Free Trade Agreement had passed third reading in the Senate. Today, this fabulous minister announced that the legislation has received royal assent. This announcement coincides with the passage of the FTA in the South Korean National Assembly yesterday. With the latest milestone, Canada and South Korea are on track to bring the agreement into force on January 1, 2015, fulfilling the commitment made by our Prime Minister and the President of South Korea. Canadians know that when it comes to opening new markets and creating export opportunities for Canadian businesses, only this Conservative government can be trusted to deliver the goods.
The Honourable Member for Papineau. Mr. Speaker, I had an incredible childhood, and my father introduced me to kings, to queens, and to presidents, but I never saw him as proud as when he introduced me to Jean Béliveau. From then on, every time that I met Mr. Béliveau, when I shook his hand, I saw the impact that he had not only on me, but on everyone around him. He was a man of dignity, of respect, of kindness.
Jean Béliveau was a man of class, of strength, who demonstrated the kind of leadership that inspired not just players, but all who watched and met him. He will be greatly missed, but he will continue to inspire generations of not just young hockey players, but of Canadians across this country.
At this difficult time, I think of his family, his wife Elise, his daughter Hélène, and his grandchildren. Gros Bill, we will miss you. The Honourable Member for Lotbinière-Chute-la-Chaudière. Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness to hear that Canada has lost a hockey legend, known to many as Le Gros Bill, Mr. Jean Béliveau. On the ice, he led the Montreal Canadiens to 10 Stanley Cups, including 5 straight in the 1950s and 1960s. Montreal Canadiens owner Jeff Molson may have said it best when he said that Mr. Béliveau was a man whose contribution to the development of our sport and our society was unmeasurable. Jean Béliveau was a great leader, a gentleman, and arguably the greatest ambassador our game has ever known. Mr. Béliveau was named Honorary Team Canada member and captain of Canada's 2010 men's Olympic hockey team. This was just one of many honors he achieved in his life, including the Order of Canada, the National Order of Quebec, his own postage stamp, and of course having his number 4 retired in 1971. Mr. Speaker, our sincere condolences to his family and friends.
For Scarborough Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, as we approach the end of session, we see more poor performances from the front bench of the Conservative Party. The Minister of the Environment, who frequently heckles, has been reduced to reading the newspaper in the House. The Minister of Veterans Affairs doesn't get much of an endorsement from the PM, but he does get a PMO staffer to babysit him. The Minister of State for Social Development doesn't think questions should be asked in question period. The Minister of Agriculture is going to sell the Canada Wheat Board to his buddies from Chicago for the low price of $0. It all adds up, Mr. Speaker, to a government that doesn't take responsibility for its actions, who will never admit to any mistakes, and who are counting out the remaining days of personal drivers and expense accounts. So who will be today's symbol of this tired and out-of-touch Conservative government? Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, it feels like Santa Claus has come to town early this year. Our new family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will help 100% of families with kids by an average of over $1,100 a year. The majority of benefits will flow to low and middle income families. The families in my riding of Don Valley West are pleased that we are putting forth more money back into the pockets so they can spend it on their priorities. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you about 3 important things we know. First, our Conservative government is on track to balance Canada's budget. Second, our family tax cut will help families balance their families' budgets. And third, most importantly, the Liberal leader thinks a budget can balance itself. Mr. Speaker, our government will continue to help Canadian families keep their hard-earned money in their pockets.
Outstanding. Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, while an entire generation of veterans of the Afghan War are coming to retirement age, the Department of Veterans Affairs is facing increasing demand, of course. But the Conservatives decided to reduce the departmental staff by 25%. Almost 1,000 professionals who know our veterans have been shown the door by this government. How can the Department of Veterans Affairs help a growing number of veterans if they have 1,000 fewer staff members to do this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We are increasing the services for veterans. But I want to note today that we lost Jean Béliveau, a great Canadian, both on and off the ice, a giant of our national sport. I do want to express our condolences and our admiration to his family and friends.
that today we've lost Jean Beliveau, truly a great Canadian and Canadien, an individual who's just a giant of our national sport and our national life, and we all want to express our condolences and our admiration to his family and friends.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Veterans Affairs even warned the minister that these layoffs created a risk that Veterans Affairs would not be able to meet the needs of veterans, Canadian Forces members and their families. 9 veteran service centres have been closed. 1,000 staff have been laid off. The minister is knowingly putting our veterans at risk. So instead of firing the staff, why doesn't the Prime Minister fire the minister?
Here is the reality. We have taken resources out of backroom administration, from bureaucracy. We've put it into services. There are more benefits and more money for veterans than ever before, and more points of service. That's called good administration, good government, and it's good service for the veterans of this country.
Conservatives' callous disregard for our veterans doesn't end there. Conservatives are now arguing before the courts that the government's repeated promises over the years to care for injured vets were just political promises and should never have been taken seriously to begin with. Quote, these statements were political speeches not intended as commitments or solemn commitments, unquote. That's what they said. So does the Prime Minister stand by that argument made by his own lawyer in court that the government's promises to veterans were just political speeches?
Speaker, I'm obviously not going to comment on matters before the courts. What I can say is the following, Mr. Speaker. The substantive matter is a measure passed by the previous government and supported by all parties in this House, including the NDP. But, Mr. Speaker, the reality is that this government has enhanced veterans' services in numerous ways. We brought in the Canadian Forces Income Support Allowance that the NDP voted against. We brought in the Veterans Bill of Rights that the NDP voted against. We brought in compensation on the Agent Orange issue that the NDP voted against. Enhancements to the Veterans Independence Program that the NDP voted against. I could go on.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Minister, he's proving that he actually does think that they were only political speeches. He doesn't think that veterans in our country have a right to service. He has said through his lawyers in court in Canada that these are political speeches. Those promises should never have been taken seriously. Instead of blaming the veterans for actually taking his word, why doesn't he start respecting his word?
The items I just listed are not political rhetoric. They are real services and programs for our veterans. And Mr. Speaker, the rhetoric is from these guys who, when actually faced with doing something for veterans, vote against them every single time we deliver.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The NDP will reopen every one of those 9 offices. Mr. Speaker, this week, members of Parliament voted unanimously in favour of an NDP motion to give ongoing support to the victims of thalidomide. When will this vote be followed by action by the government? When will the Prime Minister confirm specific funding for ongoing support for victims of thalidomide in this country?
Mr. Speaker, as you know, the government has committed to that, and the Minister and the Department continue to meet with the Victims Association. But, Mr. Speaker, it's good to know that the NDP will hire more bureaucrats at Veterans Affairs. What it won't do, Mr. Speaker, is vote for is vote for enhanced funding for the Community War Memorial Program, enhanced benefits under the Earning Loss and Supplementary Retirement Benefit Program. The NDP won't vote for the Financial Support Program. It won't vote for career transition services, for mental health services, for disability awards and allowances, Mr. Speaker, and that's the difference between the rhetoric over there and the action here.
For Papineau.
Mr. Speaker, we thought we'd reached the point where...
We've moved on to the next question. The honourable member for Papineau now has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, we thought we'd reached the point where we couldn't be shocked anymore by the Prime Minister's shoddy treatment of our veterans. But now we learn that to pad his books, he's actually underfunded our military cemeteries. He's cut 80% of the staff doing this solemn work. Thousands of grave markers needed repair and weren't fixed last year. When will the Prime Minister apologize for his disrespect of our veterans?
The right honourable Prime Minister.
I note that the government has enhanced funeral services for our veterans through successive budgets, also enhanced contributions to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? Guess who stood up in his place and voted against that? The member for Papineau and the Liberal Party. Once again, Mr. Speaker, and veterans are not fooled. They know all they get from is rhetoric from the Liberal Party. They get actions and services from this government.
Mr. Speaker, we now find out that the Prime Minister's neglect of veterans goes beyond comprehension. In addition to letting down those who need psychological assistance, today we find out that the government has cut resources for cemeteries for those who fell in combat. Will the Prime Minister finally apologize for his lack of respect to our veterans? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the government has increased and improved funerals for veterans in successive budgets. We've given more resources to the Commonwealth War Memorials Commission. Whenever we've increased these benefits and services for veterans, the member for Papineau and his Liberals voted against it. They're full of rhetoric. We take action. Mr. Speaker, next Saturday there will be a memorial service for the sad events of the Polytechnic. Although the Minister of Justice doesn't seem to want to understand what went on there, will the Prime Minister finally meet with the group called Police se souvient, the survivors and families who have serious concerns about his gun control bill? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I regret these false declarations by the member for Papineau.
That Marc Lépine singled out women for his slaughter. One can never understand why somebody would ever act like that. This week, obviously, we remember those 14 lives that were so tragically snuffed out. And this government will continue its commitment to work against criminals, to crack down on crime, and also to support the victims and prevent these kinds of crimes.
Honourable member for Papineau. The fight against climate change requires concerted effort. China and the U.S. agree to cooperate with the international community, but here in Canada, the minister continues to play petty little games. She refuses to include the opposition in the Canadian delegation traveling to Lima on climate change. She doesn't even want to hold a briefing to explain the issues to be discussed at the conference. So why is the minister continuing to scheme behind the backs of the opposition and the international community? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have always said that for any international agreement to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions, all major economies and emitters must do their part. With the United States and China accounting for 39% of the emissions, we are encouraged by the promises they have made to reduce their emissions, as Canada emits less than 2% of GHG emissions. In 2012, Canada's GHG emissions were roughly 5% lower than 2000 levels, while the economy grew by 10%. We will continue to play our part by reducing emissions at home and work with our partners across the globe to establish an international agreement that includes all emitters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Halifax.
En se présentant les mains vides.
By going to the Lima Conference on Climate Change empty-handed, and by dragging behind her one of the worst environmental records in the G20, the Conservatives are increasingly discredited and isolated, as is the minister. 195 countries are coming together to negotiate a legal framework to replace the Kyoto Protocol. So why are the Conservatives going there as saboteurs? The minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canada is playing a leadership role on the international stage. We have helped over 60 developing countries reduce emissions and adapt to climate change. We are also doing our part by contributing to the Green Climate Fund. We're also a founding member of and major financial contributor to the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. We are also addressing short-lived climate pollutants under Canada's chairmanship of the Arctic Council, and we will continue to protect our environment while keeping our economy strong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Maybe the minister noticed while reading the headlines in question period the other day that our trading partners are moving on climate change and Canadians want action. Her department, Environment Canada, says that this government is going to miss its targets, that the oil and gas sector has the largest emissions and it's going to continue to grow the fastest. Mr. Speaker, the world is watching. Will the minister announce, finally, oil and gas regulations?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we said before, this is a continental issue that needs a North American solution. Our government will continue to work with the United States on reducing greenhouse gas emissions for the oil and gas sector. We feel it is best to align with the United States, as we have with the transportation sector. We will continue to protect the environment and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a way that maintains jobs, creation, and economic growth for Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, just as the conference in Lima got underway, the minister made an 11th hour funding announcement for green climate finance. But the problem is the money wasn't in the budget or the estimates. And key details like where's the money coming from? How will it be spent? How will it be paid out? And over how long a period of time? Well, they're left out. Can the minister confirm that this is new money and that it will be paid out this year?
Mr. Speaker, our government wants to reach a fair agreement in Paris that includes all emitters and all economies. It's important that an agreement be durable, flexible, and effective. But meanwhile, Canada will continue to take concrete actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while keeping our economy strong. As Canada emits less than 2% of the greenhouse gas emissions globally, Canada's per capita emissions are now at their lowest level since we started recording in 1990. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, time and time again we come to this House and the minister, she trumpets all these liberal failures on climate change like it's a free pass for her to do nothing. But it's been 8 years. It's time that the Conservatives quit finger-pointing and actually started doing their job. Climate change is a clear and dire threat to Canadians, and the negotiations in Lima urgently need leadership and ambition. So, is this government finally going to take climate change seriously? And will they commit to a binding global agreement?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, we have always said that for an international agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, all major economies and major emitters must do their part. So with the United States and China accounting for 39% of greenhouse gas emissions, we are very encouraged by the promises they have made to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as Canada emits less than 2%. We will continue to play our part by reducing emissions at home and work with our partners, global partners across the globe, to establish an international agreement that that includes all economies and all emitters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, I've been trying to work with my colleagues on the government side to deepen their understanding of Section 404 of the Canada Elections Act. Now, this is what we know. So a corruption scheme was set up by SNC Lavalin to funnel political money to key politicians, and the Minister for International Development was one of those politicians. We know he's admitted that he received $25,000 as riding association under the scheme, which would make those donations illegal. We now know the name of the SNC executives who funneled the money, so it's a straightforward ask. Why not just strike the names of those contributions? Would the Minister of Democratic Reform not believe that this is part of living up to the Canada Elections Act? He's got it.
The Honourable Prime Minister of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, political donations are limited to $1,200 a year, and those are personal donations, Mr. Speaker. Our party certainly does not accept donations that do not respect the law, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, we support Elections Canada as it investigates SNC Lavalin, Mr. Speaker. If we find, or if Elections Canada find that SNC Lavalin made illegal donations, then we, as we would expect the Liberals and the party of the Leader of the Opposition, will refund those money.
The Honourable member for Timmins, James Bay.
I'm encouraged. We're starting to come closer and closer out from the darkness into the light here. So we're talking about the administrative work of government here because a key cabinet minister was a recipient of a political corruption scheme. Now, the name of the SNC Lavalin executives who funneled the money are known. So why wait for the end of somebody else's investigation? What we need to understand is whether the minister will reassure Canadians and tell them he wants to have nothing to do with this SNC scheme, that he's going to stand up and say that he will do the right thing and return that money so we can have confidence in his role as a government minister.
Mr. Speaker, I just answered that, and I just indicated that, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, I suggested that the Liberals, as well as the Leader of the Opposition's party, should do the exact same thing, Mr. Speaker. But let's remember that it's this party that brought in the Accountability Act, Mr. Speaker, which took out the influence of big unions and big money from the political process, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the NDP didn't read that law because they immediately broke it, Mr. Speaker, by accepting some $300,000 worth of illegal union contributions, Mr. Speaker. And we haven't even got on to the $1.5 million that they still owe Canadians for illegal satellite offices.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-L'Île. The Conservatives have to stop hiding behind an investigation that will only end after the next election. The Escouade Marteau and the Charbonneau Commission shed light on a well-organized system where SNC Lavalin was using fronts to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to political parties in power. Will the Minister for Democratic Reform make sure that this dirty money is reimbursed, or will he tolerate that his party is campaigning with dirty money?
Speaker, as I just said, if the Elections Canada investigation indicates that SNC Lavalin donated illegally, then we, as we would expect the Liberals and the party of the Leader of the Opposition, will refund any of those money. With respect to the Charbonneau Commission, I would suggest that she ask the Leader of the Opposition, the member from Outremont, who actually served as a cabinet minister in the government that is indicated in that Charbonneau Commission investigation, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, I would ask her to refresh her memory with respect to the Accountability Act, which makes accepting union donations illegal, Mr. Speaker. And we'd also encourage them to return that $1.5 million that they've illegally taken from the Canadian taxpayers for satellite offices in areas where they have no members.
Dirty money seems to be a Conservative specialty, Mr. Speaker. We've witnessed the Minister of Veterans Affairs boasting about his fair to help veterans. We've witnessed the Environment Minister reading a newspaper to evade questions about their failure to manage Nutrition North while people go hungry in her riding, and now boasting about this government when it has one of the worst environmental records in the industrialized world. Abject failure on veterans and on the environment. To the Prime Minister, when will Conservatives acknowledge their many mistakes, and when will these ministers start doing their jobs?
Mr. Speaker, we're very, very proud of the record of our government and of our ministers in particular who performed very, very strongly. What is sad is that in the face of declining poll standings, in the face of very, very weak policies, the NDP has decided they are instead going to resort to a new strategy, the strategy of personal attacks.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
Minister suggested the reason he's been absent on his file was because he was in Italy commemorating those killed in the Second World War. He suggested, lest we forget, means something different to him. Last year, he cut $2.5 million from the very program responsible for preserving the memory of deceased Canadians who served us in war and peace. He fired 33 people responsible for maintaining these symbols of remembrance, including the memorial he visited in Italy. Can he tell us why the hypocrisy? Or did he already forget?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our government will continue to ensure that we have the right people in the right locations to assist our veterans and their families. Our government has invested billions of new dollars since 2006 into veterans' benefits and services, investments for new frontline mental health clinics, new access for veterans' families to family centres and on 7 military bases, and we will, Mr. Speaker, continue to make improvements to support our Canadian veterans and their families.
Well, that must explain, Mr. Speaker, the vote anything but conservative movement because they're so happy. He can't have it both ways. He can't explain away savage cuts to veteran services, lapse billions, 9 closed veteran centers by standing up as the Minister of Commemorations, and then turn around and slash the program responsible for the preservation of memorials of those who fought and died for Canada. Why did they cut $2.5 million last year and fire 33 people responsible for maintaining Canadian symbols of remembrance? Of course, more advertising, right?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our government has invested, as I stated, billions of dollars in improving the quality of life for veterans and their families. But it's quite ironic, Mr. Speaker, that in budget submissions, main estimates in June 6, 2012, the Liberal government declined to support Commonwealth War Graves Commission funding to make sure that our veterans, our deceased members' graves are well maintained, but also, Mr. Speaker, children of deceased veterans' education assistance programs, those too were not funded by the Liberals.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
It'd be nice if he showed up to explain the main estimates, Mr. Speaker. Since 2008, they've cut 949 positions, or about 25% of the workforce. They let billions lapse and close 9 veteran centres, but they've still been able to increase Veterans Affairs advertising, $4 million in the spring and $5 million this fall. After chastising war service vets, running away from Jenny Mignot, and failing to answer basic questions, isn't the real reason the minister isn't fired yet is because he's really just doing the Prime Minister's bidding?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, in order to support veterans and their families with better programs and services, our government has made significant investments into mental health treatment for Canadian veterans. We have shifted bureaucratic resources to frontline service delivery. We have doubled the number of counseling sessions. We will assign Veterans Affairs employees to several military bases to speed up medical file transfers between our 2 departments. Mr. Speaker, all of this is building on improvements that we've been making since 2006 and will continue to do so.
Member for Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, today is the 23rd International Day of Persons with Disabilities. 1 out of 6 people in Canada lives with a disability, and these people are 3 times more likely to live in poverty. Although Canada signed the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the government has done nothing to fulfill its obligations. Instead of cutting affordable housing and home mail delivery, why doesn't the government put in place a plan to meet the needs of people who live with a disability? The Honourable Minister of State.
Speaker, Canadians with disabilities know that there's no other government who has been as supportive of them, not only in terms of assisting them, but including them in and helping them access the workplace and other community places. Mr. Speaker, we've renewed the labour market agreements for persons with disabilities. It's helped over 289,000 Canadians with disabilities find employment. We've increased funding and for the Opportunities Fund, the Enabling Accessibility Fund. We've introduced the historic Registered Disability Savings Plan. Every one of these initiatives that we've introduced and promoted for people with disabilities, the NDP have voted against.
Honourable member for York South-Weston.
When it comes to Canadians living with disabilities, the Conservatives have been all show and no substance. They signed the UN Convention, but they haven't fully implemented it. They created huge backlogs at the Social Security Tribunal. They cut home mail delivery, and they've done nothing to address housing challenges or the high levels of poverty among Canadians with disabilities. Canadians deserve better. Will the Minister of Foreign Affairs invite the UN Special Rapporteur for Persons with Disabilities to come, assess Canada's progress, and make recommendations for improvement?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Mr. Speaker, here's what we are doing. This government is meeting with people with disabilities, Canadians with disabilities who want to be in the workplace, who want to have community places accessible. We're listening to them and we've responded, whether it's our Enabling Accessibility program, whether it's our Opportunities Fund, our renewed labour market agreements. The Canadians who have disabilities but a number of amazing abilities know that this government, this party recognizes that and want them included in all aspects of Canadian life.
The Honourable Member for Welland.
Mr. Speaker, 12 the Conservatives cut 1/3 of the staff of the Canadian Grain Commission and said there won't be any impact. Well, surprise, there was. Inspections got less, and now buyers of Canadian wheat are complaining about underweight shipments, variable quality. In fact, one foreign-based buyer found 850 kilograms of peas. Oh, it was a wheat shipment they found the peas in, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, under this minister's watch, they can't break the grain to market. They can't assure the quality of the grain to market. In fact, they can't even deliver the right quantity to the market. When will this minister stand in his place, apologize to Canadian wheat farmers, and tell them he intends to make it right, and he will stop failing Canadian farmers in the future?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite likes to cherry-pick his facts. I've got some great ones here. The number of Canadian farms earning $500,000 over has increased by 166%. Farm cash receipts for the first 3 quarters of this year total $42 billion, higher than previous years. Livestock receipts are up, total $18 billion, up over 15% from the same period from last year. Net cash income reached $12.7 billion in 2013, higher than it's ever been, Mr. Speaker. Crop receipts rose by 4%. We've got a great story to tell for farmers across Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, please allow me to rephrase a question from yesterday. At first glance, Mr. Speaker, you might think that it's completely crazy to give away all the significant assets of the Canadian Wheat Board to an American agri-food giant until you look at who's on the board of directors of that corporation. None other than the paper bag prince himself, Brian Mulroney. Then it starts to look like conservative on conservative shenanigans, if you ask me. So now there's 2 options. Either this monumental corporate giveaway is completely crazy, or it's an unconscionable handout to a well-connected conservative. Which is it?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the antics of my friend from Winnipeg are well known across Canada. There are a number of law firms that have sent their kids through college on the fees that they've collected as he apologizes and pays out dollars to people that he's wronged. And he's wrong again, Mr. Speaker. This is a process driven by the CWB through a recognized audit and legal firm looking at the process, making sure that everything is fair and above board.
Member for Grant.
Mr. Speaker, today is International Day for Persons with Disabilities, a day that serves to remind us that all Canadians need to be treated with dignity and equality. Thanks to the strong leadership of the Prime Minister, our Conservative government is a world leader in providing supports for Canadians living with disabilities. Can the Minister of State for Social Development please explain what this government is doing to help Canadians with disabilities gain the skills they need to obtain jobs?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member from Brant for the great work that he's doing on behalf of Canadians with disabilities. No government has done more to support Canadians all abilities than our government. Through great programs, as I already mentioned, like the labour market agreements for persons with disabilities, we've helped over 289,000 Canadians with disabilities find jobs. We've also fulfilled our promise to reform the Opportunities Fund, and I just launched the new national call for proposals this past Monday. Canadians can be very proud of our action to ensure that all Canadians of all abilities can participate and contribute to our communities and economy.
Mr. Speaker, as if muzzling our scientists wasn't enough, now the Conservatives have decided to cut, once again, the Canadian Space Agency's budget. Funding will be reduced by $50 million this year and by $100 million the next 2 years. Dozens of employees will lose their jobs. So how can the Conservatives claim that they care about the aerospace industry, which is concentrated in Quebec, and yet continue to hack away at one of its flagships year after year? Honourable Minister of Industry.
Proud of Canada's role in space. Of course, topped off last year by the remarkable job of leadership that Chris Hadfield showed as leader of the International Space Station. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, we have answered the questions that have been raised by communities who are looking for leadership from Ottawa on the space file. We had the Emerson Space report that came to the Government of Canada, and we've acted on every single one of those recommendations, and we've moved forward, including in this year's budget, with new commitments to Canada's space framework. And in fact, Suzanne Benoit, president of Aero Montréal, here's what she said: "We salute the government's vision in making the space sector a priority for the Government of Canada. We're taking action, delivering the goods for the space sector."
The honourable member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, the senseless cuts to the Canadian Space Agency come after a decade of budget freeze under Liberal and Conservative governments. While NASA's launching Exploration Flight Test 1 tomorrow, it's the first crew-capable spacecraft to leave low Earth orbit in more than 40 years, the Conservatives prefer cutting funding to science across the board and muzzling scientists. Why did the government pursue these cuts to the CSA? Why are they laying people off from our space agency?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Industry.
The Space Agency is strong and going in the right direction under the leadership that we've put forward, Mr. Speaker. But better than that, Mr. Speaker, we have added new funding, effective funding, for example, renewing our commitment for the James Webb Space Telescope, which will advance the globe's understanding of the cosmos and all that it entails for the future of scientific discovery, Mr. Speaker. This is an ask that the global scientific community has asked for. Canada has always been a leader in space. We continue to be a leader, and we will partner with these key projects that will keep Canada at the very front row of leaders in space.
And the honourable member for Nanaimo Cowichan.
Mr. Speaker, a new report from the Department of Justice shows that the number of Aboriginal women in Canada who are behind bars has grown by a shocking 97% in the decade since 2002. This overrepresentation is compounded by a lack of access to culturally appropriate programming and rehabilitation and the complex needs of many Aboriginal women offenders. Does the minister acknowledge that when one community doubles its representation in prison in a decade, the status quo is simply not working?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her question. We recognize the unique challenges the Aboriginal people face in the criminal justice system. They are clearly overrepresented. And that's why it's been our priority to invest in programs such as the Aboriginal Justice Strategy. And since 2007, we've committed to record levels of funding to the Aboriginal Justice Strategy. This funding and these investments support community-based justice programs aimed at lowering crime rates, reducing the overrepresentation, as I mentioned, and contributing to the safety and security of on-reserve residents. Mr. Speaker, we must all continue to work together with our First Nations to improve their quality of life.
Member for Nanaimo.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative tough-on-crime agenda is disproportionately impacting Aboriginal women, who now make up fully 1/3 of all incarcerated women in Canada. The correctional investigator has warned this government that there is an urgent need for change in the way Aboriginal offenders are treated. His warnings were dismissed by this minister, and now we have a crisis on our hands. Instead of continuing this failed approach, why doesn't the government invest in community resources to prevent Aboriginal women from being criminalized in the first place?
And the Honourable Minister of National
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is exactly what we are doing. We are investing specifically in Aboriginal justice programs. We are working across many departments to ensure we include more Aboriginal people to participate more fully in the Canadian society and the Canadian economy. Mr. Speaker, we have tabled legislation specifically aimed at ending violence on reserve and around the country. And, Mr. Speaker, the sad reality is that on all of those occasions, when we have brought forward legislation to protect Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, giving them matrimonial property rights, Mr. Speaker, for example, putting forward legislation that holds offenders accountable, Mr. Speaker, doing more to protect streets and communities across the country, the NDP opposes those measures.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's trip to the Arctic was a $786,000 photo op this past summer. Did he not see the homelessness and the hunger of the Northern and Inuit people? Did anyone inform the government of people digging in landfill sites for food? Mr. Speaker, the Minister for the area has been a dismal failure. The needs of the people are not being looked after, burying her head in a newspaper when important questions are being asked in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop posing for photo ops in the Arctic and start filling the cupboards of Inuit?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I stated in the House yesterday, the well-being of Nunavut Mute and their families has always been my top priority and continues to be. As an Inuit born and raised in Canada's Arctic, I know how important access to healthy food is for our children and for our families. I also know how important it is for Inuit people to maintain their traditional hunt, whether that be the seal hunt or the polar bear or the beluga or the narwhal. I will continue to stand up for Northerners and Inuit for healthy food. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville. Speaking of the beluga, Mr. Speaker, the government is responsible for the dire situation in Kakuna. Why didn't it do anything to protect the beluga or the 66 other species that scientists have identified as being at risk since 2011? The Director General for Quebec of Fisheries and Oceans Canada said that the zone around Kakuna must be protected, and he said that the order would state that. Does the minister agree with her Director General, or once again, is she going to shirk her responsibilities? Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, it is already illegal to kill, capture, harass or harm the beluga whales or to destroy its habitat under the Species at Risk Act, the Fisheries Protection Provisions of the Fisheries Act, and under the Marine Mammal Regulations. St. Lawrence belugas are listed as threatened, and all the required protections are currently in place, Mr. Speaker. Cozywick has proposed to list it as endangered, and a decision will be made after consultations are held. That's the process, Mr. Speaker, and information and impacts are analyzed.
Member for Ottawa Centre.
Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, the Government of Canada decided to use a refurbished bakery warehouse for the Museum of Science and Technology. The result was an uninspiring facade, leaky roofs, moldy walls, exposure to asbestos, and now we learn the government knew the museum's roof was collapsing. While the Conservatives were spending over $500,000 to rebrand the Museum of Civilization, they let asbestos rain down on exhibits, and a collapsing roof compromised visitor safety. So, Mr. Speaker, why did the minister delay funding and let things get this bad?
Mr. Speaker, I was absolutely pleased to announce with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the MP for Ottawa-Orleans that our government has proudly invested in the Museum of Science and Technology to modernize, upgrade and repair this treasured institution. Wow. Our Conservative government, in fact, has made significant investments into our Canadian national museums since 2006. And to be honest with you, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how to take that question, because if the NDP actually cared about our national museums, they would not have voted against providing investments to, for example, the Canadian Museum of History. So we'll take no lessons from them. We'll be proud of our investment.
Honourable member for Hollywood. Mr. Speaker, they're asleep at the switch, mold, collapsing roofs, asbestos, and they still allowed school groups to come in. It's appalling. And yet the Conservatives have known since 2013 what is happening with the Museum of Science and Technology. This is an important institution, but the government has dragged its feet on this file since 2013 and even before that at the expense of people's safety and security. Can the government explain why it has been so slow to react on this file? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have just said, we are very proud of what we have just announced with regard to the Museum of Science and Technology to modernize and upgrade this valuable institution. But once again, as I said, our Conservative government has invested significant amounts in National Museums of Canada. But every time, Mr. Speaker, every time we do so, the NDP decides to vote against, for example, investments in our Museum of History, which is in Gatineau, right beside this member's riding. Now, if they really care, they should vote for our investments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On October 26th, Ukraine held its parliamentary elections, and Canada sent over 300 observers to monitor these elections, as well as having the largest contingent of any contributor. Our government has been the strongest of the international supporters of Ukraine as it works to restore its economic stability and implement democratic reforms. And that includes, Mr. Speaker, our Prime Minister telling Vladimir Putin to his face to get out of Ukraine. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence please comment on this development?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member from Etobicoke Centre for all of his hard work in support of democratic and strong and prosperous Ukraine. Yesterday, we learned that the Ukrainian Parliament voted in favor of a new Ukrainian cabinet, which happened to also be the anniversary of Canada being the first Western nation to recognize Ukraine's independence. We encourage the new government to work with the people of Ukraine in fulfilling their economic and democratic aspirations. Restoring the public's confidence in the institutions is one of the many priorities the government of Ukraine must endeavour to achieve. Canada will always stand with the people of Ukraine, and we look forward to working with the new Ukrainian government.
The honourable member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, in 2004, Parks Canada began an archaeological dig at the 17th century Acadian village of Beaubassin in Cumberland County, Nova Scotia. After finding over 6,000 artifacts and foundations for 40 structures, the area was declared a National Historic Site and bought. Unfortunately, work on the site ceased 3 years ago. Will the Minister of Heritage ensure that funds are provided to at least establish an interpretation centre and proper explanation of this incredible Acadian site in time for Canada's 150th anniversary?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Parks Canada is committed to protecting the environment. Since we formed government, we have created a number of parks, 2 national marine conservation areas, 3 marine protected areas, 3 national wildlife areas, 2 national parks, and 1 national historic site. It is a shame that those members of the opposite won't be supporting the Rouge National Park that's going forward before the House for third reading. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, this week we have reports of the stoning to death of 2 gay men in Syria. That's the reality too many LGBT refugees face around the world. When seeking asylum in Canada, LGBT refugees rightly fear disclosing their status for fear the basis of their claim will be revealed and violence will follow. Gay refugees from Uganda have been attacked and murdered in a Kenyan camp after making Canadian refugee claims. Will the minister commit to concrete action to ensure the safety of LGBTQ refugees making claims for asylum in Canada?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I think everyone in Canada is proud of our role in providing protection and refuge to those from the LGBT community who have sought that protection from around the world. We did so in the spirit of the conference recently held in Toronto. We've done so on a large scale in the case of Iran, and if the member has other cases he'd like to bring to our attention, I invite him to do so outside of this place.
Honourable member for Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a steadfast supporter of the World Food Programme. All Canadians are proud that Canada is the 3rd largest contributor to this program, and we pay what we pledge. We applaud the organization's indispensable work in fighting global hunger, especially in conflict zones like Syria and Iraq. With that in mind, I rise today to express my complete dismay at the acclamation of Iran as a member of the World Food Programme Executive Board. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs please comment on this development?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from Lancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale for his question. The selection of Iran to the World Food Programme Executive Board is completely regrettable. Iran continues to be an agitator to peace and security. Its actions, in particular those in Syria, have contributed to the ongoing suffering and food shortages that the World Food Programme aims to prevent. Mr. Speaker, we do not see how a regime that so blatantly inflames starvation can have any credibility within this organization.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my region, many cheese producers are worried about the impact of the free trade agreement between Canada and Europe. Even though we have developed quality cheeses, many people are worried that the arrival of French cheese, or rather European cheese on our market, will weaken our fledgling industry. Quebec cheesemakers have proposed measures for adequate compensation and to ensure the sustainability of the industry. Will the Conservatives study this proposal and adequately compensate cheese producers? The Honourable Minister
Députés entreprises.
For State for Small Business. I would like to remind the member that we signed a free trade agreement with the European Union and that the party across the way has not yet supported this free trade agreement. And in a very specific clause, it is stated to people of the cheese industry in Quebec and Canada that there will be means of compensation. And currently, Mr. Speaker, we are negotiating with them, and the compensation will come all in good time.
Honourable Member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, one of Canada's most respected Conservatives, Preston Manning, is calling for a price on carbon. He knows that the marketplace can reduce CO2 pollution. Truly Conservative MPs should support carbon fee and dividend, not a penny to government, and money right into the pockets of Canadian families. Mr. Speaker, which Conservatives will dare to publicly agree with Mr. Manning and let markets reduce both CO2 and poverty?
Well done.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unlike all the opposition parties, we do not believe in carbon tax. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. That concludes question period for today. I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Mrs. Barbara Winters, who was among one of the first upon the scene at the War Memorial on October 22nd and who provided first aid to Corporal Cirillo, as well as support and encouragement to him as he fought for his life, and who today received the Deputy Minister of Justice's Award for Humanitarian Excellence. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition has a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there has been consultation between the parties of this House, and I believe that if you seek it, you will see that there is unanimous consent for the following motion to mark the loss of a legend of the Montreal Canadiens with a moment of silence in the House of Commons. The motion is the following: that the House recognize that Jean Béliveau was a legendary captain of the Montreal Canadiens. Recognize that Canadians are very touched by the loss of this gentleman who marked his time through his sporting achievements and through the force of his character. Celebrate his brilliant career, 18 seasons with the Montreal Canadiens and 10 Stanley Cups, and offer its condolences to his wife, Elise, his daughter, Hélène, his two granddaughters, Mylène and Magali, and to all the family of the Montreal Canadiens.
Does the Honourable Member have the unanimous consent of the House to propose this motion? Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. Is it the pledge of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed. Agreed.